In the previous stream I talked about this guy by the name of Jake Van Landingham, as you can see on the thumbnail. Now, he pleaded guilty to his role in the welfare scheme, and he is agreeing to cooperate with prosecutors. And I think these prosecutors are going after the big fish in Brett Favre, right? Should be pretty obvious at this point. But I wanted to bring you up to speed on other individuals who have pleaded guilty in this scheme to defraud the state of Mississippi of around $77 million. Okay? Because remember, in the previous stream, I talked about 7 people, right? He's one of them. So, this woman right here, her name is Christy Webb. Her name is Christy Webb. Her role in this scheme she pleaded guilty to 1 count of theft concerning federal funds before Magistrate Judge Keith Ball in Jackson, Mississippi on March the 16th. And that's March 16th of 2023. Okay? Court documents say that she directed $1.1 million to companies owned by former WWE wrestler Ted DiBiase Jr., who has since been charged and indicted for his role in this welfare fraud scheme. Now, Christy Webb was the executive director of the Family Resource Center of North Mississippi, a nonprofit that handled millions of dollars in federal funds in coordination with the Mississippi Department of Human Services. The federal dollars included the TANF funds, which are meant to help poor families with children, and the Emergency Food Assistance Program funds, which provides nutrition to families in need. So that's Christy Webb. This guy goes by the name of John Davis. He was the former Mississippi Department of Human Services director who led the Mississippi Department of Human Services from 2016 to 2019. He pleaded guilty on federal charges in the case in September 2022 as the head of the department, where he oversaw the dispensing of federal funds to nonprofits like Christy Webb's. So Davis on March the 16th, it was a bill of information that implicated John Davis and others at times, but mostly it was him, directing Webb to award sham contracts for the delivery of social services to various individuals and entities, including 2 companies owned by retired WWE wrestler Ted DiBiase Jr. The document accuses I already talked about the well, let me go back further, right? So the document accuses Christy Webb of misapplying $700,000 in TANF funds and almost $500,000 in the TEF app funds to the companies. A 2021 forensic audit paid for by the Mississippi Department of Human Services estimated that the FRC misspent almost $12 million in TANF funds between 2016 and 2019. And Christy Webb, had served as director of that nonprofit since 2005. Next, we'll go to Brett DiBiase. Now, Brett DiBiase is the younger brother to Ted DiBiase Jr., obviously the son to the $1 Million Man, Ted DiBiase. So I got a question. How come Ted DiBiase himself not implicated in this? find that pretty interesting that he's not somehow involved in this. But anyway, so this is Brett DiBiase, right? Brett DiBiase pleaded guilty on charges related to the TANF fund scandal in 2020. They say he received millions of dollars in TANF funds from his, I'm talking about the dad. They said, city officials said Ted DiBiase Sr. also received millions of dollars in TANF funds for his Christian family ministry under Davis's tenure, though officials have neither accused nor charged him with the crime. Republican State Auditor Shad White and Democratic County District Attorney Jody Evans first made the public aware of the massive welfare scandal in 2020 as they announced charges against 6 individuals, including Brett DiBiase, John Davis, Nancy New. We'll get to her in a minute. Now, he pleaded guilty to state charges and federal charges. So in December 2020, he pleaded guilty to state charges and pleaded guilty to federal charges in 2023. So, Brett DiBiase was paid these TANF funds for teaching classes about drug abuse. And even though DiBiase was in a luxury rehab for his own drug use in California, he did not perform the services. So basically, Brett DiBiase was paid this money to teach class about drug abuse, and yet he's a drug addict himself. You can't make this stuff up, yeah? You cannot make this stuff up. This man was paid, once again, for the people in the back. This man was paid money to teach classes about drug abuse. Meanwhile, he's a drug addict himself. Can't make this stuff up. He was in a luxury rehabilitation center for his own drug use out in California at that particular time and did not perform the services he was paid to do. At John Davis's direction, the TANF money received from the DHS was to pay for DiBiase's opioid treatment at the Rise in Malibu facility. The documentation submitted by the news claimed this was the way to pay DiBiase for conducting training that never took place. John Davis hired Brett DiBiase to work at MDHS in 2017, and he later began working at one of the centers out in Mississippi. And state officials say that during Davis's tenure at MDHS, Ted DiBiase Jr. occupied one of the largest offices at the Mississippi Department of Human Services, located next to the director's own office, and even though he was not on the payroll. Next, we're going to talk about Nancy New and her son, Zach New. And these two have pleaded guilty in their roles in this harebrained scheme. All this money that was, boy, you cannot make this stuff up. Nancy New was a nonprofit director for the Mississippi Community Education Center. She pleaded guilty to both federal and state charges. Nancy New and her son Zach New, they were using the nonprofit, the Mississippi Community Education Center, to pay for Brett DiBiase's treatment. Her and her son was using the TANF funds to pay for Brett DiBiase's drug treatment. Make it make sense. So what's up, Crawford Experience? See, YouTube not gonna send a notification for this one. Cause see, as long as I'm calling out Van Jones and all these other clowns out here for buck dancing, yeah, they'll get all kinds of views or whatever like that. But when I shine the flashlight at these funky white supremacists right here and all their harebrained schemes and all that, nah, that won't get no traffic. They ain't gonna get no traffic. Just know I see through the scam, YouTube. They're out here spending this money and just throwing this money around like it was going out of style. So we talked about Christy Webb. We ain't even talked about this lady right here. We have not even talked about this lady right here. What the hell happened to her face? Her name is Ann McGraw, or Ann McGrew. Not Ann McGraw, Ann McGrew. That's her name. What the hell happened to you? Ann McGrew was the head financial officer for the Mississippi Community Education Center. She's pleaded guilty to her role in this scheme. She first agreed to a deal with prosecutors for her role in the scheme uncovered in February 2020. But in a very rare occurrence, Hinds County Circuit Court Judge Adrian Wooten rejected her guilty plea. Now, details of that initial agreement were not made public, but another defendant in the scheme got his charges cut. McGrew is still saddled, or she was saddled with both conspiracy to commit embezzlement and making fraudulent statements. In exchange for her cooperation and testimony against co-defendants, the state will recommend remanding the court of making fraudulent statements at sentencing. She faced up to 5 years in prison and a fine of $5,000. But since the judge rejected her guilty plea, she faces up to 10 years in jail and $15,000 in fines. So this woman right here is the star witness in this whole scheme that's going on. She's the star witness. So when you factor all that in, right? When you factor all that in, Brett Favre is guilty as sin. And I don't know why this guy has not been arrested yet. I don't know why Brett Favre hasn't been arrested yet. All these people pleading guilty left and right, and yet we can't get Brett Favre's ass up to the front. Make it make sense. he going around here talking about how people smearing his name, knowing he's guilty of sin. Mm-mm-mm. We ain't even talked about Ted DiBiase Jr. yet. But don't worry, his trial is in January. We're going to talk about that. And the daddy, Ted DiBiase Sr., the $1 million man. How come he hasn't been charged in this scheme yet? You don't think that Ted DiBiase Sr. didn't have a role in this? How did he get all that money? How did he get access to that money to run some church ministry? And nothing happened to him? He hadn't got charged yet? Come on now. Come on now. That's not even right. That's not even right. Telling y'all. You guys let me know what y'all think about this. There's way more information that we don't know that has yet to come out. And as soon as we get more information, you can best believe I'm passing on this channel. If you have not caught the video from what I did previously involving Jake Van Landingham pleading guilty on Wednesday to his role in the scheme, please check out that video, right? And if you're not a subscriber to this channel, make sure you hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, and share these videos on your social media platforms. Last but definitely not least, shouts out to the LDBC. This your man. Scream at me. Ho!